Hey everyone, welcome to the Naked Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Sage Hobbs, author and creator of Naked Communication, and I'm so psyched you're here. This show is all about taking charge of your life in new and inspired ways to create a life you deeply love. It's about being more you in all areas of your life, more courageous, more free, more alive, more naked. I'll be sharing stories and advice from amazing people around the world who are up to incredible things on how they are successfully breaking free from fear and old patterns in order to create incredible relationships and impactful lives so that you can do the same. This is the place to be inspired to live a courageous and naked life. Let's do this. Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to Naked Conversations. I am back. It has been several months and I thought it would be a few weeks. And here we are a few months later, jumping back into Naked Conversations. So I'm your host, Sage Hobbs. I'm super honored to be here with you. And for all of you who are listening for the first time, or those of you who have been loyal listeners and tuning back in after a big hiatus, I super appreciate you being here. And I know your time is really valuable. So this is season 3. And I have to be honest and say I wasn't sure if I was going to come back and do it. And I'm still exploring what it's going to look like. So here's what I've come up with. I woke up this morning and I was really clear that there was something more to talk about for Naked Conversations. It just came to me. And the idea was about courageous curiosity. So when I've talked about Naked Conversations in the past, or Naked Communication, which is my book, if you don't have it, you can grab it on Amazon. It's really about peeling back the layers and getting at the subtext of how we express ourselves, how we communicate effectively for building positive relationships across differences to make positive impact in the world, in our personal lives, our professional work. And it really takes courage. That is what I've gotten clearer and clearer on. The more that I do this work, the more that I coach people, the more that I speak about it, the more that I learn and listen to others as teachers and mentors, that it takes courage. And so I thought, okay, if I'm going to launch season 3, I want to really dive into courageous curiosity. Like, what are the hard questions that I myself am grappling with and that others in the world are grappling with and trying to answer? And how can I bring them on the show to really talk about these questions, these problems and dilemmas, and really in some cases, crises and epidemics that we're trying to solve in our country and in the world? So hard questions, big problems. Honestly, I don't know exactly what it's going to look like because this is a creative project. I'm really making it along with you. So if you have ideas, message me on Instagram or email me at sage@sagebhobbs.com. And on Instagram, my handle is sagebhobbs. I really want to hear from you. I want to know if these conversations that are real and raw and honest and brave that I have with other women, as well as the topics that I bring to you of my own learning and discovery. I want to know what you want more of or what is useful to you so that I know I'm not just talking to myself and that I know you're out there. And I know you are because you do message me, but I'm encouraging those who never have to please reach out and tell me your ideas and your questions. And maybe I can bring on somebody to address the questions that you're grappling with. So here are some of the topics I'm thinking of for season 3 related to courageous curiosity and how we really make an impact in the world by asking hard questions and then getting to work at figuring out how to answer them. That's really what I want to address in season 3. So some of the guests that I've been inviting on that you'll hear from are going to be talking about their work with women's equity and how to empower women's voices to really be in positions of leadership and take ownership for contributing in a larger scale to societal decisions and company decisions and industry decisions, and how we can really amplify women's voices in that way and how we continue to struggle to do that massively. If you look at statistics, it's actually quite daunting. Other topics I really want to get into more, and if you've been following my blog or you're on my newsletter list, you know that I've been passionate for a really long time about racism, anti-racism work, white supremacy conversations. White fragility is something I'm newly learning about more and more and more. And this deep sense of urgency around injustice and cry and call and battle cry for equity. So having conversations around that. And if you're not reading my blog, you can find that over at sagebhobbs.com and you can sign up over there to have it delivered to you and with some personal notes from me. That happens about twice a month these days, so I really don't bombard you. It's just a really lovely way to be engaged. And there's some amazing free resources around how to communicate more effectively and do these hard conversations. So you can go grab that at sagebhobbs.com. Another topic I'd like to get into around hard conversations and courageous curiosity this season is around the crisis of addiction and recovery. in the States. Some things have been coming to light for me lately that I've wanted to learn more. And I'm curious about how we address something that is so pervasive. Another topic that I'm chewing on is anti-racist parenting. And, I haven't dove fully into the parenting space, even though I am a mom, and it's a really key, if not the most key role I play in my life. It is probably the most key role I play in my life, actually, hands down. So really having conversations around how do we do this better? How do we actually walk our values and not just talk our values? Then the questions that I ask myself a lot, which is who gets to be a leader and why? I want to dive into that a bit. And how do we level the playing field around leadership and whose voices we hear? So those are some of my thoughts about season 3. Thank you. We have over 10,000 downloads of this show, and that's just such an honor to me. I really appreciate you being in this conversation. I think it's actually the way that revolutions are going to be happening is through many, many, many conversations and the action that ensues from them. So thanks for being part of Naked Conversations with me. Here's what I've been up to during this podcast pause. So I just want to share with you a bit about what's been going on for me, why it took me so long to get back to you here. And then the question that I'm bringing to the table today and 2 amazing things that I've been doing and learning that have been helping and supporting me in breaking down these questions. So first is what I've been up to. Where have I been? Why has the podcast fallen to the back burner? If you're a loyal listener, I apologize. I really do. And the podcast is this amazing creative endeavor for me that I had never done before I did it. And I'm just sort of learning to follow its ebb and flow. And I have to sometimes pay attention to other professional components of my life and to other familial components of my life. And the podcast fits in where it fits in. So what's been going on in these few months where I haven't been with you is that I spoke at Google at the International Women's Day Summit here in Google in Boulder, Colorado. A friend of mine and I gave a presentation on Brave, Naked, and Imperfect to a room full of 175 women Googlers. It was an extraordinary experience and really definitely stretched my edges to place myself in sort of a different environment of women and see how that message landed. And it landed as powerfully as it has anywhere else, which is we are all dying to express ourselves authentically and courageously and connect with each other meaningfully. That is what we want. And we're looking for the tools and resources to get there. So it was such an honor to give some of those tools and resources and to have that conversation with the women in the room. And I did that with my dear friend, Susie Reinhardt, who is extraordinary. And she was a guest on the show. She was episode 43 of this podcast. I interviewed Susie Reinhardt. Her book has just come out. It's called Fierce Joy. And it's all about choosing to be brave over perfect and choosing joy over fear. And her story is just unbelievable. Her personal story. I've actually can't put her book down, and I even know her personally. And I still am captivated by how real and raw she is in her book. So we spoke together. That was one of the things that's been going on lately. Another thing is that I continue to facilitate women's leadership programs inside of corporations as a consultant with the company Emerging Women. And that has been such a delight to work with super high potential, super high achieving women inside of a corporate context. And to again see the universality for a lot of women around the struggle to be heard, the struggle to balance, so-called balance of work and life, the desire to be ambitious and lead, and some of the challenges that we face along that path. So facilitating that leadership program for women on a corporate level has been such a delight. And then a full circle thing that has come back my way is, if you followed me for a while, you know that I was a school counselor, that I have a master's in counselor education, and that I'm married to a high school teacher. So education has always been a super foundationally important part of my work and my values. And when I left the schools, I really took a pause from being in the educator space. And now I'm back in that public sector as an executive coach working with school principals and facilitating some change management and culture shift programming for schools in transition, leadership transition, and things like that. So it has been such a privilege and an honor to be back in the school environment, but in a different capacity, and really serving to help transform public education. We all know that it could be working better. So that's been a super delight. I've been doing that since I paused the show. And I've been still doing my amazing individual coaching for women who really want to live and love and lead more courageously and with greater impact. So I have clients who run nonprofits, who have started their own businesses, who are mothers and wives and partners who are really looking at how do I show up more courageously and really be in the driver's seat of my life. So that is just always something I adore, that kind of coaching. And again, you can find out more about that on my website. You can actually just book a call with me if you want to talk about it and see if it's a fit for you. I only work with people that I really feel like I can connect with. So we always talk first. So then, of course, that's just all the work stuff. Any of you who are listening have lives outside of your professional space, right? So for me, I'm a mom of 2 kids and a wife to a teacher. So as I'm recording this, this is the last day of school for my kids. I cannot believe it. And my son just turned 10. And I decided to take him to New York City to visit my brother and my sister-in-law and their 2 girls, my nieces. Oh my gosh, my adorable nieces. Oh my gosh, I love being an auntie. And my best friend and her new baby, and just to really explore the city with just him, just the 2 of us. And it was really special. I also watched my daughter finish kindergarten, which really kind of makes my heart hurt a little bit. Even though she's so ready and she's so fierce and she's so independent, she came out of the womb with so much autonomy. And I don't want to squash that in any way. I, as the mama, was feeling like, oh my gosh, my baby is growing up. I watched my son perform in a Julius Caesar play where the kids had adapted this complicated Shakespeare into something palpable and creative. It was such an amazing thing to see him be brave on the stage, something he's not very comfortable with, yet very good at. It's a good lesson actually for us to remember. Even though things are hard, it doesn't mean it's not what we're meant to do. So I love public speaking, and I also kind of loathe public speaking before I do it. Before I hit the stage, I'm like freaking out. I've had panic attacks, truly massive panic attacks before speaking in front of an audience. And yet every time, as soon as I open my mouth and connect with the people in front of me, I'm just so lit up. So I thought about that with my son performing in this little school show because it's scary for him, and yet it's something that I think he's really good at. So I watched my husband wrap up his 15th year as a teacher and as a social emotional learning expert, which I'm just proud of him for that, for being a man who has so much empathy, a man in a position of privilege, a white male, cisgendered, straight man who could just leverage power easily in our country to actually be somebody who, not that he doesn't have all of that inherent power, but to really be somebody who loves and believes in young people and education and the importance of centering social emotional learning inside of an education system. I'm just proud of him. And I can't believe it's been 15 years. That means we're getting old. We took our kids camping in the desert in Utah, which I love that area of the world. It's probably one of my favorite parts of the world in Utah. And we hadn't been since my kids were born. So it's over a decade. So it was such a treat to share some place that I love and considered kind of sacred ground with them and see them love it as well. So that's what's been, going on, overview, personal, professional. Obviously, it all mishes and mashes up together. I don't really think they're separate most of the time, or idea of work life. To me, they're really intersected. But that is what's been going on. And as I've been stepping more into doing consulting and speaking in addition to the coaching, I've just been trying to figure out what that looks like in terms of the podcast and staying connected with all of you regularly. So again, I'd love to hear from you. And you can do that by messaging me on Instagram or emailing me. You can connect with me through my website. You can grab free resources over there. You can pick up the book, all of these ways to really be in this conversation with all of you. So today's question, the 2 things I want to share with you today that I have been learning. And again, one of the ways that I learn the most is by listening to others. I listen to other podcasts. I read tons of books. I get into conversations with people. I attend trainings. So I'm hoping that if I am an outlet for you learning some of the things that I have also learned and acquired through being out in the world, that we can just continue to amplify our impact moving forward. So the question I'm sitting with today is, how can I do better at being an advocate, an ally, and a leader, right? And you can ask yourself this question. How can you do better at being an advocate, an ally, and a leader, right? So allying yourself with people who maybe don't have the same degree of privilege or voice that you have, who really need you and others to see them and hear them because they haven't historically been seen or heard. Advocating goes even a step further and is really advocating on the behalf of what you really think is right. So, and leading is required for all of that. And that's in all the areas of our lives. How do we lead inside of our families? How do we lead inside of our places of work? How do we lead on the interwebs? When you're posting on Facebook or Instagram or wherever you tweet or whatever you do, How are you showing up? What are you choosing to put forward and put forth as who you are, right? So the two big things that are there for me right now are a training I just attended. And honestly, this is going to be its own entire show and episode at some point, because there's so much to say on this that I cannot even begin to unpack it today. We'll just go on and on too long. So I attended live training yesterday with Dr. Robin DiAngelo, who wrote the book White Fragility. If you haven't read White Fragility and you have any interest whatsoever in anti-racism work, white privilege, social justice, any of that, I really recommend you check out Robin DiAngelo's work. It was extraordinary, where there were hundreds of predominantly white folk in the audience, which is by design. Herself identifies as white, and she speaks to other white people in a way that is challenging, confrontive, brilliant, wise, disruptive, and really calls to action change. So again, I think I'll do an entire other episode on this, but one piece I'll give you that's really sticking with me that I've been just sort of chewing on and marinating in all day today. And it's not my first foray into this conversation of white privilege and anti-racist work. As you know, if you've been following my work at all, or you know me personally, it's been a long, multiple decades long exploration, and I still have so much work to do. And I got really clear about that yesterday. That this is forever work. It's forever work. If you really want to unpack racism, if you really want to unpack white privilege and white fragility, it's forever work. So I'm in this work. And the piece that really, really I took away is how our mainstream definition of racism in our country, in the United States, really serves to protect the system of racism itself. Because the mainstream definition is about you're a racist if you, the individual, not the collective, but you as an individual, consciously and intentionally cause harm. And so it's easy for all of us to say, well, I'm not that. My gosh, I would never, say something blatantly racist. I would never do that. I would never intentionally hurt somebody because of the color of their skin, right? So it makes it such that none of us, meaning white folk, have to take responsibility for the fact that we live in a racist system and that we were indoctrinated into it. And there's nothing we can do or could ever do to escape that, really. That is the water in which we swim, the air that we breathe. So without sustained study, struggle, and focus, we just can't unpack this enormous social disease, really. And that was just such an interesting way for me to sit with it, that the definition of racism on a mainstream level, that it's individualistic, that it's conscious, and that it's intentional, actually allows us to kind of excuse ourselves from the fact that we're in a racist system, that all of our institutions replicate racism generation after generation quite easily, and that we as white folk benefit from those systems. So you might need to listen to that even a little bit, a couple of times, if this is new information to you. Mostly go to Robin DiAngelo's website and check out her work, because she knows far more than I do. And I will continue to talk about it, and I will continue to lean into it, and I will continue to do things in my own community that disrupt the white status quo and inside of myself as well. So I'm obsessed with her. I think she's brilliant. And I think she's funny and smart, and she's courageous as hell and not at all scared to really shake things up and say, look, this is what is actually going on. There's a huge historic context, and it's really present today. So check it out. Let me know what you think. I'm super curious. Again, message me on Instagram, send me an email, sage@sagebhabs.com. And really let me know, what do you think of this idea of her work? And have you read White Fragility? Also, she's been on several podcasts, so that might be a way for you to check her out. I'd love to have her on this one in the future. So that's the first thing in terms of when I'm asking myself, like, how can I do better at being an ally, an advocate, and a leader, is to keep showing up and doing the work. So paying the money and spending 3.5 hours yesterday in a room full of people. And it wasn't comfortable in some moments, the ways that she challenged us, the things she asked us to talk about with our neighbors. That is my commitment to my values. And that is my commitment to you, which is that I show up and I share with you what I learn and know. I'm not going to apologize for my opinions around what I think is important in the world. You can have what you think is important in the world. I'm deeply rooted in the fact that I think it's important to talk about racism and race and whiteness and privilege, and to unpack all of those things so that we can raise our kids to do better and actually move towards a just and fair society. And we're a long ways off. So that's important to me. And that work is so exciting. It was so exciting. It was just like, I'm fangirling Robin DiAngelo. And then the second thing that I'm really sitting with as I explore that question of how do I be a better advocate and ally and leader is my own training and development. So I do that sometimes by attending trainings, by reading books, by listening to podcasts, by having conversations and going out to lunch with people that can teach me something, et cetera, et cetera. And I put myself into training programs. So I just completed, I think it was 9 months, a program with Tara Moore, which was a Playing Big Facilitators training program. And Tara Moore wrote the book, Playing Big. Again, highly recommend it. And it is really focused on women and women's leadership and all the ways that we are conditioned to hold ourselves back, to be quiet, to please others, to play nice girl, to be a good girl. And it was an extraordinary training that gave me so many more tools in my toolbox as a coach and a leader and a consultant. I've already been using many, many tools through my master's in counseling and, years of experience with the personal and professional development space. But her training was so smart and deep. And she's also been on podcasts and such. If you want to, she has lots of very brilliant articles, published some in the Harvard Business Review. If you look her up, it's Tara Moore, Mohr, and her book is Playing Big. And the pieces I've been really enjoying using with my clients, there have been several, but the two that I'll share with you today are about the voices in our head and how they serve us and how they don't. So really the inner critic, the ways that we are mean to ourselves, that we have self-doubt, that we let fear stop us, that we think we need a million more credentials and trainings in order to speak out and make a difference. That inner critic voice, I have now worked with so many highly accomplished, brilliant, passionate, compassionate, outwardly, others would definitely identify them as successful women, and not one of them hasn't struggled with the inner critic voice, this voice of, you don't know enough yet, you're not going to get it right, people aren't going to like you, you better not try, you're going to screw it up, what will people say, all of that. And Tara just gets into it so brilliantly around how we manage that inner critic voice. So that has been so huge for me as a practitioner, as a coach and consultant myself, as a practitioner, and in my own life and how I'm choosing to move forward and the things that I'm wanting to write about and speak about more on bigger stages and in bigger communities and with all of you out in the world. Where is my inner critic coming up? Where am I holding myself back by fear of letting people down or disappointing or doubt or fear, right? So I hope to have her on the show at some point. And in the meantime, check out her work with Playing Big. I meant to mention also that when I was speaking about the white fragility piece with Dr. DiAngelo, I had a guest on the show back all the way in episode 7, whose name is Rachel Rosen. And she has been doing the work of racial equity inside of schools for years. She's awesome. And one of the things when she and I were on the phone recently, just catching up and talking about life and this book she's writing, she said this thing that I love so much was about learning in public. And that takes really a lot of courage and vulnerability to learn in public, but that we can't wait to learn everything about social justice or anti-racism work or women's leadership work, if any of it, right? We can't wait till we know it all in order to participate because we'll never know it all. So we have to learn in public, and that can be scary and vulnerable, but that is really what I'm doing here with all of you as I hold this microphone and commit to showing up here with you with my blog and with the show and just in the world, in real life as well, is this idea of I'm going to learn in public. And so sometimes I'm going to mess it up. I'm going to fall on my face. I'm going to get it wrong. I'm going to, insult somebody or offend somebody or something, right? And I'm just willing to take that risk at this point because I think it's the only way that I can really be in integrity with myself and my values and things that are important to me and that I can contribute to all of you in meaningful ways is by being willing to learn in public, falter, and give you permission to do the same. So that's episode 7, if you want to go back and check that one out. And so those are the two things. It's the work of Dr. DiAngelo with White Fragility and the work of Tara Moore with Playing Big. And there's so many other things that are brewing that I'll share with you in a future show. But I'm looking at joining a local nonprofit board where I live, because another thing I'm really getting clear on is how can you make impact where you are? Make impact in your sphere of influence and your own community. So stay tuned, more on that. That would be a new and exciting way for me to be a part of my community in meaningful ways. So message me, jump on my newsletter list. If you like the show, please rate it, review it, and share it with people. That's really the most amazing way to sort of generate this movement of women's voices, of courageous conversations, of courageous action, of authentic self-expression, of meaningful leadership and impact. So please, I so appreciate it. And I really do love to hear from you. We need all of us to have these big aha moments, these insights, but then to really take the action to match them, to live and to love and to lead for the greater good courageously. Thanks so much for being a part of this, and I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to Naked Conversations. Yay! It really means the world to me every time you show up. And if you want to know more about how to work with me personally and my coaching, you can check that out over at sagebhabs.com. You can also get some great free resources over there about how to make powerful requests and many blog posts full of resources for living a naked life, as well as grab a copy of my book, Naked Communication: Courageously Create the Relationships You Really Want. Thanks again. See you next time.